Welcome to our second part of a discussion on vaccine handling principles with Dr. Skabot Vroneman from Zoetis. Dr. Vroneman and Dr. Natanja Smit both recently published a vaccine handling guide. Last time we spoke about what is important before vaccination takes place, and today what will we be focusing on? Skabot, thank you for joining us again.
Hello, Lisa. Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. So today we're going to talk about do's and don'ts during vaccination. What's important there? Yes.
Now, we've already spoken about the importance of maintaining the cold chain when it comes to vaccines and receiving the vaccines. What is important while you're busy with vaccination?
So maybe I can just take a step back. So in our previous discussion, I explained that keeping vaccines between 2 and 7 degrees Celsius is important. And that's as simple as having a cooler box with a thermometer and ice packs in there. I might just add there, so that mechanism that I just explained is good for when you collect the vaccines, where you buy them from, transporting them to the farm, and then also for using them next to the crush. In the meantime, if I can take a step back, if you store them at home in the refrigerator, the same principle goes. You don't want them to freeze. That's the more important one, and you don't want it to overheat. So keeping not having too many bottles in the fridge, so you restrict airflow. That's bad. Not putting them all the way to the back where they can freeze, or even in the door. The finer tips are in the manual I'm talking about. But now we are during vaccinations, and now we've got our cooler box with our ice packs and a little kitchen thermometer, and we travel with that to the crush. And from there on, we have to be reasonable and practical. So we are going to take out the vaccine when we use it and inject the animals. But between crushes, if there's a space where animals are not injected consecutively, put the bottle back in the cooler box. Try and be as practical as you can to maintain that cold temperature.
Yeah. And then I suppose hygiene during vaccination is, of course, very important. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Often also a overlooked part of vaccination, but it is important to maintain vaccine. So a lot of these guides use the word aseptic. So I'm also a farmer, and I do realize being completely aseptic next to a crush is not always possible, but being hygienic is. So trying to keep everything as clean as possible, your hands, the equipment that you work with, injecting animals that are dry and clean, regularly changing needles between vaccinations. That's all part of a hygienic process to make sure. So we want everything as clean and hygienic as possible to give that animal the best chance to react to that vaccine. Yes.
What should producers take note of when it comes to using equipment that is available for the injections?
Yeah, so there's a couple of important tips there. The first one is needles. If we talk about reusable needles that are quite common when we inject farm animals, to make sure those needles are sharp. That's as easy as feeling for burrs on the tip of the needle, and only using sharp needles. Second, very important thing that I like to reiterate as much as I can is if you use automatic vaccinators, to make sure they are calibrated. So there are different ways and that you can do that, and everything. We always try and make it as simple and practical as possible. So if you can have a little plastic draw-off syringe, 2 or 3 cc, and you can draw up 2 cc, and then you inject the injector with water in there and see if you actually have 2 cc's injected from the automatic injector. I hope that made sense what I'm trying to explain now.
I understand.
But you have to calibrate your vaccine gun. If you are through your bottle of 50 doses and there's still vaccine left, then you know that automatic vaccinator was not calibrated like it should be. Yeah, other important things to look for there is before you vaccinate, if you have that bottle in your hand, just make sure it is still sealed, that it hasn't been broached before. and that it's within its expiry date. Yes, that's important.
How do you select the appropriate needle size for the injection?
So in this guide that we published, we've got a rough guide, but it comes down to which species, whether it's sheep or cattle or pigs that you are vaccinating, and which route. So intramuscular will take a longer needle, for example, than a subcutaneous route. But it's we've got a rough guide, exactly like I explained now. But another handy tip again is to look at the package insert. A lot of the vaccines give a prescription as to what length of needle and what size of needle to use there. But if that's not available, like I said, in this guide that we published, there is a rough recommendation as to the needle diameter and length for different species and different routes of injection.
Skabot, what happens if animals are ill or very stressed when you need to vaccinate?
No, so it's never recommended to vaccinate ill animals. Stressed animals also not. It's not always possible, depending on the scenario that you work with. If you run a feedlot, for example, and you buy in calves from various regions, they are going to unfortunately be stressed during vaccination, at least during the first vaccination if there's more than one opportunity. But that is not ideal. So if you've got a cow-calf operation, you've got control of how and when you vaccinate certain groups of animals. It's very important not to vaccinate stressed animals, definitely not sick animals. And the reason for that is that you won't get as good of an immune response as you will if they were healthy and not stressed. Along with that, you can even add nutritional status. So emaciated animals that are in very poor nutritional status, will also not react as expected to the vaccine.
In closing, talk to us about accidental exposure or self-injection. I suppose that does happen.
Yeah, that does unfortunately happen. So first off, I'm a veterinarian. I'm not a medical doctor. So I would always recommend that any person that are exposed to self-injection, whether it's a small volume or just a needle prick, that they do visit their doctor as soon as possible. Take the label, the package insert with, to show the doctor exactly what was injected. Sometimes there's nothing comes of it, but depending on the vaccine, it can really be dangerous. So in this regard, I would always say prevention is better than cure, if I can put it that way. So having safe handling techniques, safe equipment, and trying to avoid accidental exposure as much as possible, that would always be my recommendation. If it happens, unfortunately, seek medical advice. Rather be overcautious than not addressing it properly. Because some vaccines can be dangerous, some adjuvants can cause tissue reactions. There can be repercussions that we really do not want.
Well, this concludes our part 2 of our talk with Zoetis about the vaccine handling guide with Dr. Skabot Vroneman. What are we talking about next time?
So now we're going down the list. So next time we're talking about what to do after vaccination. Yes.
And don't miss that.